What's going on YouTube? Matt from GarageMC here. Guys, in today's video, I want to get the engine into the 465ex chassis and start getting that in. I'm just going to put the bottom end in, but in this video, we're going to build the top end out, head, everything, and get this thing into, more complete. Actually, we might not put the head in yet, because I got to port and polish another head because I had to use the one that I had for this. So we're going to get the bottom end put in there. We will set and check the gap for the piston rings and get that thing going. So stay tuned, guys. If you're looking for a more in-detailed video on how to split 400ex or XR400 cases, check out my older videos. There's also how to rebuild it, like the 416 we just did with the new crank and bearings. And I got other videos for like timing chain sliders. So check out all my older videos, guys. I got over 100 uploads. A lot of 400ex content if this is what you're into. But yeah, I want to get this put together. Today's Saturday, June 17th. Tomorrow, June 18th, is my birthday. So this is my present to myself. So let me get done putting this together. I got a couple pieces I got to powder coat too. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so before we, before I get to slapping this bottom end together, any of you guys that are following the project on the quad that I bought to resell, flip, the 06 Trx465ex, I found some more stuff wrong with it. I ordered every single thing it needs, including like maintenance stuff. So new ball joints for the front, which actually pisses me off because that little quad you can rebuild and replace the ball joints on the stock A-arms, but you can't on a 400ex. Great job on that one, Honda. I found a couple other problems wrong with it. Got new bearings, oil change, tune-up stuff, the electronic piece that was broken. But this video is not about that, so we'll get into that when all those parts come in. We're going to do that whole thing all in one video. All the repairs, everything. Getting it look good, polishing the plastic, seat cover, all kinds of stuff for that thing. So be on the lookout for that. In this video, though, I'm going to pull out the stroker crank, the hot rods crank. And before I install, well, I'll install it into the first the left side case first. One of you guys, I believe Evan, was asking me about some information on the cranks, how to tell which one's a stroker. Guys, I'm not even 100% sure how to decipher the difference without getting out a caliper and measuring it, obviously. But there should be a part number on your crank, so I'll show you the part number that's on the one that's going in the 465ex. I'll show you part numbers on a stock replacement for a hot rods factory replacement non-stroker, and I also have a OEM Honda crank that I'll show you what that looks like, even though the one I think you said you have is a hot rods and you're trying to figure out which piston to order. So we will get into that. I don't know if you can call hot rods. They might not even be able to tell you, who knows. But let me get this put together. I did hog out the part where the cylinder skirt goes into the cases here on both sides. So that's all ready to go. You guys can see the sheen on that's different. So I did that just like I said with the hone, and then I cleaned it up with a Scotch-Brite wheel. So, alright, let me get into doing this, and I also got to clean the garage real quick before we get into this, because that'll just drive me nuts. Be sure to stay organized when you're doing this type of stuff, guys. So, I got enough of a headache to deal with because I bought all these parts like 8 months ago, so stuff's everywhere. But we're getting it done, so let's actually do that and get it done. Alright guys, we're to the part now. I got the bottom end together. I didn't put the other case on yet because I just said before, Evan, you were asking me about the stroker crank. So what I'm seeing with the difference in the cranks here, there's something that stands out to me, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it without splitting your cases to know if you have a stroker crank or not, so you know which piston to order. But anyway, here, let's take a look at a couple of the differences and I'll show you what I noticed. To me, it looks like the rod is the same length, but the big end bearing where the pin is in the crank is in a different position. That's where you get your stroke from. So let me show you guys what's going on. So here we are. I got the transmission in, the shift forks and dowel is in, the shift drum is in, a brand new shift shaft, OEM Honda, as you guys can see. It's all brand new there. I cleaned up the output shaft where the sprocket goes because I had a little surface rust on it. I had to get a new one of these because somebody had welded the shifter on to this engine. To me, it just looked like the splines weren't messed up, but they were missing the bolt that actually clamps the shifter down to the spline, kind of like on this roll design one, like they were just missing the bolt. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about that shifter in a second. So, all right. So here's this mark on here. Like I said, you won't be able to see with the cases together, obviously, unless you're, you got a little mirror or a boroscope or something. So this is the 465 stroker crank. It says 609 on this side, and then the other side has, let's see if I can get you guys some light here. Hold on one second. So with some light, the only thing I can see is after the number, it has an S. I don't know if you guys can even make that out. There you go. So it says what? 8624-S. Hot rods, made in USA, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's the stroker crank for the 465. Now, this is an OEM Honda crank here. It says HN1. Usually that's, what OEM Honda parts have. And then this is a Hot Rods standard stroke crank as well. It says HR6098 on one side, and then on the flywheel side, it just says Hot Rods. So I think if you have an S, like you just seen on the back, Evan, I believe that stands for stroker. But what else I have noticed is, if you look at both this Hot Rods and OEM crank, you see where this is like the big end bearing part where it's pressed together. You see how it's kind of like cut into this circular part that rides on the bearing that's on this crank, as well as this Hot Rods standard stroke crank. So we'll take the Hot Rods one. You can see the difference here. So you see how it's cut into that? This one, it's not. It's spaced out from it. So that's where the stroke comes from. I don't know if you'll be able to see that without a boroscope or a camera, but that's how I could see the difference. I hope that helps you with what you're doing, Evan. And as a matter of fact, while we're talking about subscribers, let's talk about this. So, talking about subscribers, guys. Well, first off, I don't know too many other YouTubers that actually take their time and research stuff and try and help out their viewers, like, in the videos. So, be sure to throw me a thumbs up on this, man. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out huge. And if you have not yet, please subscribe, man. We got a lot of stuff going on, guys. This is all, I don't make money from doing this stuff. This is all just me sharing what I do with you guys. Anyway, enough of that. So I wanted to get an aftermarket shifter for this 465ex, because I mean, you can't just put a stock shifter on it now, right, with all this other stuff on there. So I got an IMS roll design shifter, brand new, and also I wanted to get a brake lever for it aftermarket. I had sandblasted one of the several that I have, and I was just gonna, powder coat it gloss black and call it a day. But, now we got the, expensive shifter on there. So Hinson makes a brake pedal for this. I don't think they make them anymore. They're kind of hard and rare to come by. I've seen used ones, for like anywhere from $400 to $500 for a used brake pedal for the rear brake. It's insane. So big shout out to my boy Costantino's. Maybe we're going to do something and show you guys his quads. He's got a sick 250R stroke to a 310 TRX. I think it's an 88, if I remember correctly. And he also has a 06 Banshee that is Lone Star everything, including the frame. I mean, you're talking, a $30,000 build there. One of these days, maybe he'll come up here or I'll go down there. But Costantino's is a subscriber and a friend. He is shipping out that Hinson brake pedal to me, so we're going to have a really nice brake pedal on this thing as well to go with everything. It's an expensive piece, man. It's just going to add to the amount of money that is in this 465ex. But anyway, let me put these cases together, guys, and yeah. I'll get the bottom end bolted in there. I got to powder coat those the triangular motor plates that hold it in there, because I mean everything on the bottom end is going to be all vapor blasted, as you guys can see, and I don't know what color I'm going to do the clutch and stator cover. I have options. Either I can go full vapor blasted the whole engine, and then I have this clutch cover that I powder coated black chrome, or I could do some other color. I don't know. I'll figure that out, because we're not going to put covers on this thing yet. But yeah. So all this is taken care of, guys. Everything's in there. I got to throw some assembly lube on all the gears. Brand new shift shaft. All OEM Honda. You guys see all these opened up OEM Honda bags, everything. Even the pin that goes in there is brand new. So, you know, thrust washers, everything is brand new in here. But, all right, let me get out the Wiseco gaskets that I have for this. And I got to put the shift shaft seal in there, which is OEM Honda. The rest of the seals will be Tusk, but that one is always submersed in oil, so I wanted that to be an OEM seal. You know, probably wouldn't have made a difference, but you know, it's what I bought. All right, so that's what's going in it. So, all right, pick back up after I got this thing sandwiched back together. All right, guys, I got the bottom end all put together. Got it in a bag here. Actually, here, I'll take this off and show you guys how we're looking here. We got all the hardware is all stainless steel, Allen head. Yeah, they all went in with anti-seize. I'm missing this one, so I got to look through all my extra stainless steel bolt kits and get one that's the right length. The other one that I have was too long. They must have sent me a bolt kit for a 05 and up, which would change those bolts a little bit. Plus, there's a couple extra ones. So this is all good and ready to go. All a bunch of assembly lube all in there, nice and smooth, all brand new bearings, feels excellent. So that's just ready to go. So what I'm doing now is figuring out the piston ring end gap. So this piston for the 465 kit is different from a regular piston. So the height from where the top of the piston is to the wrist pin is smaller. So it's this piston's like if you were to put a regular one next to it, this one is lower, smaller than the other one, which also makes it lighter. Anyway, Carrillo pistons. Here's the spec sheet on the piston itself. And then to figure out our end gap, we have to do a little bit of math. No big deal. The bore, which is 3.504 times 0.0045 for a street or high performance application for the top ring. And then for drag racing or road racing would be 0.005. So I'm going to go with the 0.005. Over here it's saying 0.16 is the minimum allowable clearance for the piston ring end gap. So this is our second ring. The top ring is here. And then those are the oiler rings in there. So you'll take your ring, put it in your cylinder, and you want to make sure this is all nice and clean. And at the very least, just mist it with some WD-40 and wipe it down. Make sure no dust or anything is in there. You want to do this extremely clean. This cylinder was also vapor blasted, even though it's brand new. This way it all matches. So you put your ring in there, and then you take your piston, push it down, and you could check this at a few different heights, like top, middle, bottom. So now that it's in there nice and level, it's not like in there like crooked or cocked or anything like that. We're going to take our feeler gauges. So for the bottom ring, which is the second ring, I came out to a measurement of almost 0.017 for the top ring. So the bottom ring should be 0.004 to 0.008 larger than that. So 17, which is about what the math works out to, it should be 17 and a half. Just fits in there if you wiggle it, so it's nice and tight. I'm going to go to 0.018 for the second ring, and I'm going to go to 0.017 for the top ring. You could either do this by hand, and if you do, you want to file from the outside in and keep it square, or you could use a piston ring gap filing tool like that right there, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start doing this, and then we'll put the rings on the piston, get those orientated in the orientation that I like to run with these, and put the wrist pin in, and we'll get this slid in. I got some trick hardware for the cylinder too. We're not using OEM bolts. I have like studs for the cylinder, and I have studs for the head. So let me start doing this now. It's going to take me a few minutes, but you guys will only feel it for 2 seconds. Here you go, guys. Even though this is a quality piston brand, some pistons claim that they come with the end gap already set, blah, 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 blah. So I got our secondary ring, the bottom ring, gapped out to 18 or 0.018. So the top ring is supposed to be at 0.017. So the way it is now, before I even grind it, is 0.012. Matter of fact, this is how you would, check your end gap. You always want to check it before you obviously start opening the ring end gap, which is that gap you see in the piston there. That is your end gap. So we need this to be 0.017. Right now, it's a tight 0.12 fits in there. You want to get your feeler gauge below it, get it in there nice and straight, and then it should have the slightest amount of drag. So that's what our ring end gap for the top ring is set at from the factory. So that's 0.012 or 0.30 millimeters. So that's got to be opened up quite a bit. It's got to be opened up 0.005 inches, because that is the conversion that we're using, judging or going by what Carrillo recommends for your ring end gap. So let me go ahead and start opening that up. Just letting you guys see that sometimes, you should always check this and make sure it's the correct gap for what you're doing. Reason being, when this engine gets hot and all the metal expands when it gets hot, these rings will actually come closer and closer and closer together, and if they're not gapped out enough, they'll actually touch. And then when they touch, things go bad. And it's got nowhere to go, and it pinches and pushes out. And that's how you snap rings off and seize your engine, start blowing smoke, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, you can see how they wrote, street high performance, drag racing, nitrous turbo. I mean, Carrillo makes stuff for over 2,000 horsepower, as far as piston goes. They make certain things. That's what we're going for here on this 465, around 1,850 horsepower. Anyway, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. It's top secret. But obviously, the more performance you go, the more gap you want, because obviously the higher performance, the hotter it's going to run. All right, guys, got all my ring gaps set. Everything's all built out on the piston here, and I have one of the wrist pin circlips installed. So this would be the left side of the quad. The arrow always points to the exhaust. Do not put the arrow facing the carburetor side of the engine. These fly cuts for the valves are larger for the intake than they are for the exhaust, and if you don't put it the right way, you're going to end up smacking your valves into the piston, and it will clearance itself. If you're lucky, that's all that will happen, or it will bend a valve and you'll be screwed out of a bunch of money and a bunch of work. So when you put your circlip in your piston, in the groove in there where the wrist pin goes, the gap on the circlip, so here's the other one here, the gap of the circlip, you want it either facing downwards towards the bottom end of the engine, or you want it facing straight up, so 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock. You don't want it at 4, 3, 2, 10, 9, 7. You don't want it like that, because the forces of this going up and down so much in the engine, from going up and then shot back down and then shot back up, it will actually compress this ring, and I've seen them come out before, and it will damage the cylinder walls. So you want to have that gap for the circlip, 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Anyway, all right, let me clean this back off, guys. We'll put the engine back up on the bench, and we'll get the cylinder put on with our new cylinder base gasket, and we'll put the piston on, then we'll squeeze it into the cylinder. Before we do this, guys, I'm going to oil up these rings on the piston itself, and I'm also going to oil down the cylinder with some assembly lube. Note, it will smoke the first time you start it, so don't get bogged out, because it will have to burn all that off. It doesn't take too long, though. So first heat cycle should, burn the residuals off. But you definitely want properly lubed. You want to give this engine the best chance when you first start it up, since all these parts are brand new, so they're all bone dry. Even the transmission, because I had it sitting out and cleaned it off and everything for months now. So definitely want to lube it up. Don't go in there dry, You'll get some chafing going on. Alright, guys, piston's on there. Got my ring gaps where I want them. I'm not going to tell you where to put them. You know, Every piston company is different. It depends on what you're going for. I have a certain way that I like to set them up. I got my cylinder all lubed up. The other wrist pin clip is in there. This is all installed with, you know, assembly lube, obviously. Yes, I use a whole hell of a lot of it because I can. The base gasket's on there. I take the base gasket and I dip my fingers in maximum waterproof grease, and especially with the paper gaskets, I'll rub a thin layer all the way around it. It just makes it way easier if you ever have to take this back apart. You're not scraping gaskets off it. Actually, you could damn near reuse it when you do it this way. Both of the dowels are in there. I have anti-seize on both of those, and I also take the extra step to put anti-seize in the holes on the bottom of the gasket in the prospective locations that the dowels go into, because, you know, when you slide it down there, it would actually push the anti-seize off of it. So I put some in the cylinder where the dowels go as well. This way, it goes everywhere it needs to go. Nothing sucks worse than a stuck dowel, but they're cheap. If you need them, just order them, guys. RockyMountainATV.com. Not sponsored. They should. If they were smart, they would sponsor me now before my channel gets any bigger, because then I'm going to want shit later. You know what I mean? People who ride with me from the beginning ride with me for the whole time. I ride with them. So anyway, all right, I'm going to slide the cylinder on, and then we're going to start putting our case or cylinder studs in. Most people just run head studs. Usually when you go to a big bore on a 400EX, you'll blow head gaskets if you're just using the stock supplied hardware. So I went to, you go putting cylinder studs in. Now the next weak point would be the cylinder bolts if you put head studs in. So studding, everything's studded for the top end of the head, or top end of the engine. Anyway, all right, let me slide that on, and then we'll start putting those in. We'll go over torque specs, and then we'll end the video. So here we are, guys. Pistons in, cylinders on, base gasket. I got to get ready to put the cylinder studs in. So normally you would have four, I believe they're 14 millimeter or 12 or 14. I forget off the top of my head. They would just be bolts, would just go straight in. These are studs, so we're going to use studs for the cylinder and also the head. Like I said, the head studs, we are going to use Kibble White, my favorite. These are also Kibble White. So when you're putting these in, you want to lubricate these threads. So usually you'll just dip them in whatever oil you're going to use in the engine. I mean, it doesn't get into the engine, so just whatever really you have laying around. I'll put anti-seize and dip it in oil. So, this section, and we'll also lubricate the top where the bolt goes on with just oil. So these are a hell of an upgrade for this. This is going to be one solid engine, guys. We'll do one more thing before I end the video too. We'll put our flywheel on. So don't go nowhere yet. But all right. Let me throw these studs in. These are a nice upgrade, guys, if you guys are going to do, even for stock, it's a good upgrade. Anytime you upgrade hardware in your engine to something a lot stronger and heavy duty, it's stronger and heavy duty. There's really no other way to say it. So I'll put 3 in, and then I'll show you guys the last one before we put it in, and I'll tell you guys the torque specs on these as well. And, of course, we run into a problem. I'm going to have to modify 2 of these cylinder studs, guys. It's the 2 that go by the timing chain hole where the timing chain runs inside the cylinder. They all the way crank down. They stick up past the base where the head goes down to, about that much. Obviously, these 2 over here are perfectly fine. This is what the stud looks like beforehand. This is the top part. It's got the Allen head thing here. Allen head, where you can crank it down with a 5mm Allen head, Allen key. So I'm going to have to shorten both of these studs on this side. That's really not ideal. Not a big fan of that. All 4 are the same size. I didn't put, the 2 that were supposed to be over here. They're all the same exact length. So this is where I wish I had a friggin' lathe, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nut on this side and pull it back. This way when I cut it, I can unscrew the nut and it'll fix the thread. And then I'll just, you know, chamfer the edge of the bolt. This way it's rounded back out, kind of like they did at the factory. I just took down the thread a little bit. Let's see if I can get you guys a little contrast. There you go. You can see how it's silver on the bottom couple threads there. So let me go ahead and do that now. You know, who would have thought stuff would have just fell together. Anyway, would this thing be fine with factory bolts? Yeah, more than likely, or 2 studs and 2 bolts. But you and I both know damn well that I'm not going to do that. I want it to be the way I want it to be. So really, it's not up for debate. All right, let me do that. Let's keep going here. Let's skip to something else real quick. Let's put the flywheel on so we can get that done. This way the stator side of the motor is done. Jesus. Alright guys, I just decided to go ahead and fix that situation. And you can see it's close. I didn't even torque down on it yet, but it's below the surface that the head goes to. Got a pretty damn spot on. So next one here, I got anti-seize. I only do like a brush thick amount on it because it's going to ride up the threads anyway when it gets torqued in. And then you just dip it in a little oil. Doesn't take much, just a little bit, just to lube up the threads. The anti-seize is doing it anyway for us, but you know, you guys know I like to overdo things a little bit. So 5mm Allen key. And we just torque this puppy on down in there till it bottoms out. I mean, you don't have to go like send it friggin' home to where you're punching it through the case down there where it's threading into the right side case right now. Just, you know, you'll know as soon as it starts to get tight, like right about there. Don't need much. Now we're going to take our 12-point titanium nut and washer. Washer goes on there, and these are 12-point nuts, guys, so you can't use a regular socket on these. And let's go ahead and I'll take care of those. So anyway, I'll torque these down after I put the engine in the quad. I won't put the cylinder head on the bench here like this. I'll build the bottom end and, you know, get it almost ready to go. Like now is the time where your more forward timing chain slider goes in, because the knobs on it slide into this little section here in the cylinder, and then the bottom part of it hooks in here, and then the other timing chain slider, you could put that one in after the head. It's not impossible to slide it down there, or you could come up from the bottom and it gets bolted to this hole here with a washer up against the case. Then there's a little collet inside the cam chain slider, and then the bolt that holds it together. We'll do that on the quad, as well as put the clutch stuff in the next video. We'll just do a quick, I've already done a how-to on clutches and stuff with these, so I'll just do like an overview, kind of like this video is now. I have a Wiseco forged clutch basket. I have to take the gear off of the factory one. I'll find one of my clutch baskets that has a bunch of grooving. I don't want to take the gear off of that one, because once you take it off, it's no longer good. So I'd rather take the gear off of one that's all grooved out. But these torque specs up here, factory would be in sequence. You have to do a couple passes. So you would do a crisscross pattern. You would go down to 15 foot-pounds first, and then you would go to 33 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern at your second pass. And that's it. Same as exact torque specs for the head as well. Being this is a stroker engine, I'm going to do a little bit different. Instead of 15 and 33, I'm going to do like 16 and 34, 35. Something like that. That's what I normally do anyway. Anyway, guys, let me get the flywheel out. We'll throw that on, and then I'll piece you guys out. All right, guys, flywheel side. So, factory flywheel for a 400EX. Yeah, we're not running one of those. We are, well, it's OEM, but I had one machined down, so we're running a lightweight flywheel. You guys can see what the difference is here. Just how much material they take out of this, how much lighter it is. Yeah, it's a significant difference here. Just through the flywheels on the scale of doom. the factory flywheel with the one-way bearing assembly and the 6 Allen head bolts that hold it together, like these in here, came to 5 pounds 4 ounces, and the lightweight flywheel came to 4 pounds 4 ounces with the one-way bearing assembly on it as well. Big difference, guys. Rotational mass, it's huge. It's only like, what's that, 5.9, 4. It's like a pound and a half, 1.5 pound difference. So it's 1.5 pounds lighter of rotational mass. That spinning with centrifugal force is like, the exponentially gets larger as the revs get higher in the engine. We've all rode the Gravitron at the state fair. Same principle. Faster it goes, the heavier you feel. You know, science, all that good shit. So how this goes together over here. We have this large, thick washer, which goes on to the crankshaft, like so. After that, we have a roller needle bearing, needle cage, whatever you want to call it, bearing. That goes on there like that. Next thing that goes on there is the gear for the flywheel. This is what the starter turns through the set of gears that is on that. So this goes on over that, and I have assembly lube on the bearing, as you've seen. We'll go ahead and work that in a little bit. All right, now we got another thick washer. This goes right here like this, like so. Now, keyway. Usually, when I pull cranks out of quads, the keyway is usually stuck, guys. So where the hell did I just put it? Is this it? Yeah. OEM, just like everything else that went into the bottom end. Keyway. Here's part number for that if you guys need one. 90701-KAS-900. Always a good thing to, you know, get new ones of these, guys. I don't like reusing stuff like this. I consider these a consumable, just kind of like a dowel. Yes, you can get away with reusing it, but don't recommend it. Especially with what we're going to be doing with the stroker and stuff. I want a nice brand new keyway. I don't want something that's already been stressed, possibly fractured, or the structural rigidity of it is compromised in any way. So sometimes they don't slide right in. You could just tap it with a file a little bit. You don't want to file the keyway. You know, you could just like chamfer the edge of this a little bit. But keyway goes in there, and then put on your flywheel, just like so. Goes on like that, over the keyway, and then bolt with this really thick washer goes in there like that. I'm not going to tighten this all the way down. When we put the bottom end in the quad in the next video, we're going to go over all these little torque specs and stuff like that. I told you guys the torque specs for the cases in the bottom end rebuild video for Mike's 416. But anyway, yeah, that's that, guys. As you can see, we're getting there. So I'll see you guys in the next video. If you have not yet, please subscribe. Throw me a thumbs up if you haven't yet, especially if you're still sitting here watching, listening to me talk. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Also, the 250EX parts will be here this week coming up, so we're going to get that. We'll see how fast we can sell that, too. When it's all done in the sell video, I will go over what I paid for it. So, guys, put your guess in on what I paid for that 06 250EX. Whoever's closest to it, I don't know. We'll do a giveaway for something. I'll figure something out. Maybe like a set of grips and a new chain and some sprockets or something. Like, I'll figure it out. Something that's universal for a bunch of people's quads. You know, like grips or, you know, something like that. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for joining me in the garage. If you don't know, I read and answer every single one of my comments. I do not just hit you with a thumbs up. You take the time to comment. I take the time to read and answer you. Check out my other videos if you need any other how-tos on certain things that we went over in this video. And I'll see you next time.